Thank you, Kirk. 2 years after West Virginia lawmakers created a special fund designed to prevent flooding disasters, they found out today that fund is empty. Our Chase Campbell asked lawmakers why.
The West Virginia legislature established the Flood Resiliency Trust Fund in 2023. The intent was to provide dollars for flood prevention projects and nature-based solutions to protect West Virginians from increasingly frequent flooding events, with a particular focus on helping low-income communities. But, as Democratic Party Chair and Kanawha County Delegate Mike Pushkin points out, not a single dollar has been allocated to the program.
It's been a completely unfunded mandate that has not been funded, not 1 cent.
Today, Pushkin says West Virginia faces what were once called 100-year floods on an annual basis. Recent flooding in Ohio and Marion counties has claimed multiple lives and caused extensive property damage. And communities in southern parts of the state faced similar devastation earlier this year, right as the 2025 legislative session began. Pushkin says it's time for lawmakers to act.
A flood resiliency fund is about being smart, and it pays to be smart. It's about being proactive. It's about taking steps to mitigate these types of disasters before they occur.
In April, House Minority Leader Sean Hornbuckle proposed an amendment to the state budget bill that would have put $50 million into the flood fund. That amendment was voted down, largely along party lines, despite some bipartisan support. Wood County Delegate Vernon Criss was among the 75 Republicans who voted against the amendment. He also chairs the House Finance Committee. Criss says that while the legislature has the power of the purse, they need more information from the governor's office as to how any monies in the Flood Resiliency Trust Fund would be used before they fund it.
They are the ones that need to ask for it to be funded. Yes, the legislature could fund it on its own, but we don't know the parameters of the administration and what program they're planning or how much they are planning to do. So therefore, it is up to the administration.
Criss also points out that if the governor wants to put money into flood prevention programs without the legislature's approval, he has the ability to do so.
They still do have other dollars available through a civil contingency program through the governor's office to fund emergencies, but they don't seem to want to do that yet.
During a news conference in Parkersburg, we asked Governor Patrick Morrisey why his administration hasn't requested funds for the Flood Resiliency Trust Fund. The governor said other money outside of that fund has gone toward flood response and prevention.
The flood wall, there's money for the floods that occurred in the past that has been utilized. In fact, we have spent a considerable amount of money dealing with the aftermaths of these floods, obviously down south and then up in Ohio and Marion counties. So certainly there are resources that are available and they're being used to try to be as helpful as possible.
Looking ahead, Morrisey says there's more work to be done.
What we need to do is we actually have to go and prioritize and try to address those issues. I'm very open to working with the legislators and to developing a collaborative approach to make sure that we're addressing things that need to be addressed up front.
For his part, Pushkin says lawmakers were enthusiastic about creating the Flood Resiliency Trust Fund in the first place. He wants to see that enthusiasm replicated when it comes to funding it.
The bill passed. It's easy to pass a bill like that. That bill passed unanimously. What's hard to do is actually pass a budget that's reflective of the values of West Virginians and looks out for all West Virginians. That's the hard part. Unfortunately, this governor and this Republican supermajority continues to fail to do that.
Chase Campbell, WTAP News.